History has witnessed war since time immemorial. In some regions, people are still at war right now. People who've lived through a war are never the same again. The roar of the jet engines, the cries of their friends, and the sound of the shell fire are engraved forever in the memory of a fighter who's gone through this hell. Today, we'll tell you about the most terrible sounds that accompany any war, and we hope you'll never hear them in real life. Let's get it on. Air raid siren. An air raid alarm is a sound alert used to warn the public of the imminent threat of a military attack by the enemy. It works by means of special sirens installed on the roofs of buildings and other public facilities in cities and small towns. Air warnings are also used to alert about accidents, catastrophes, and threats of radioactive or chemical contamination. The volume of these sirens usually reaches 140 decibels, which is higher than the threshold for human ear pain, not to mention the fact that it has an overwhelming effect on the human mind for obvious reasons. Today, these automated and centralized warning systems are installed in many countries around the world, and sometimes these systems can be activated by mistake. For example, due to the careless work of one employee. In January 2018, a message warns the people of the U.S. state of Hawaii about an imminent ballistic missile attack, telling them to seek shelter. No wonder people took the message seriously, although this alert was made through text messages rather than sirens. It's hard to imagine the horror that the Hawaiians experienced for 40 minutes until authorities reported that the message was false. Jet engine. Another chilling sound is the roar of fighter planes rushing through the sky, or rather, they're jet engines, which have different sounds depending on the model, revolutions, and speed. It's believed that the average volume of these planes reaches 160 decibels. Remember that 150 decibels can cause a person to rupture their eardrum. It is said that the characteristic sound of the Lockheed P-38 Lightning U.S. fighter engines during World War II quickly became familiar to all Japanese people in the South Pacific. Eyewitnesses say that the roar of these planes approaching the islands made their teeth hurt. And if once the roar of a military aircraft was associated with its power and strength, today engineers are actively trying to make both military and civilian craft as quiet as possible. This is being done at the expense of the multi-circuit nature of jet engines. In other words, instead of a single compressor, the noisiest part of the engine, several are installed at the same time. And they don't always work simultaneously. That's how designers can significantly reduce the horrible noise produced by fighter spy and commercial airplanes. Firearms. Automatic rifles stand out for their repetitive and deafening shots. On top of that, it generates one of the most distinctive sounds of war. The use of automatic weapons became widespread during the Second World War. Shortly after, the 1947 Kalashnikov assault rifle became the most famous weapon in the world. By the way, in the case of the AK-47, its characteristic sound helped U.S. troops during the Vietnam War. At that time, American commandos, deeply dissatisfied with their own M16 rifle due to frequent operational problems, actively used Kalashnikov rifles that they took from their opponents. This gave them a special advantage, since the AK-47 machine gun had a different sound. Thus, Americans could confuse their opponents by using their own weapons against them. Machine guns. According to military experts, the machine gun is the key element of weaponry on the battlefield. In aviation, it's common to say that the plane is built around the engine. In the same way, ground warfare is built around the machine guns. This monster is capable of producing a roar that can instantly stun a person. The first Slauson machine gun, designed in the USSR in the 1930s, could produce a sound comparable in volume to an air bomb explosion. That's why the use of these weapons was banned by the State Military Commission at the time, due to the demoralizing effect that they could have on the troops. It is known that, when exploding, the deadly projectiles mounted in tanks create not only a powerful flash, but also a deafening sound, reaching 200 decibels. The sound disorients and deafens people within a radius of at least 10 to 15 meters, not to mention the powerful shockwave created by a tank shot. It is frightening to imagine that during World War II, the flame-throwing tanks, the most terrible tanks in history, were used. In addition to the damage caused by the shooting, they wiped out the territory using an inflammable mixture. The land continued to burn for a long time after the attack. Fortunately, this type of weapon was partially banned by the FANU in 1983 UN Convention. Cannons are the main weapon used to destroy tanks on the battlefield. Their shots can stun a person for a long time. In addition, during World War II, German gunmakers worked to create the so-called acoustic cannon. It was designed to amplify the sound of the explosion of gases in order to cause the immediate death of a person in close vicinity. Eventually, however, the Third Reich failed to create this technology. Unfortunately, in today's world, acoustic weapons have become widespread and are used by some countries, even if only to disorientate the enemy, rather than destroy them. Today, they look very different than before. They are large devices that transmit high-frequency sound waves without the use of any ammunition. The first cannon of this type was used back in 2005 by the US while defending a civilian ship against Somali pirates in the Indian Ocean. Mines are one of the most terrible inventions of war, as they can cause casualties anywhere. Even after the war has ended, without special equipment, it is virtually impossible to locate and deactivate a mine. That is why landmines are banned in many countries. There are other types of mines, such as sea and air mines. The latter were invented by British engineers during the Second World War to fight the Luftwaffe air fleet. However, they were not used for long. Their use was banned after several incidents when the ammunition was blown by the wind, erroneously falling on Allied ships. The sound of the deadliest weapon on the planet has only been heard twice. In 1945, 2 bombs dropped by the United States on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki killed a total of 450,000 people. The volume of these explosions reached 250 decibels, a number that is simply not compatible with human life. Torpedo. A torpedo is a self-propelled submarine projectile used to destroy enemy ships. The subtlety of this weapon is that even missing the target, it threatens the enemy with a powerful hydraulic shock due to the fact that the sound waves travel several times faster than water. then in the air. An example of the destructive force of a marine torpedo explosion is the catastrophe that occurred on August 12, 2000 to the Russian submarine Kursk. The most accepted theory about what happened on board of the submarine is that the accident was caused by the explosion of a torpedo as a result of a fuel leak and the subsequent detonation of other projectiles in the same compartment. Due to the fire and the strong shockwave, most of the personnel did not have a chance to escape and died on site, or shortly after the explosion. People screaming. Fortunately, these sounds aren't present in our everyday life, but the cries of people fleeing from the horror of war will make anyone tremble. Everything is aggravated by the fact that.
Thanks a ton for watching. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell, and drop a comment below. Share it with your friends too, because good stuff's always better shared.